Your phone buzzes. Another message from your son. Your heart sinks before you even read it. It says, "Mom, you're being dramatic again. You always make everything about yourself. If you can't handle our family without complaining, maybe you shouldn't come to the holidays." Your hands shake. You read it 3 times, hoping the words will change. They don't. You sit alone in your kitchen, the same kitchen where you made hundreds of meals for this child, where you stayed up all night when he had a fever, where you celebrated every small victory of his life. And now, these words designed to hurt, words that suggest something is wrong with you. This is not about a single argument. This is about a pattern. A quiet, relentless pattern of manipulation that many women over 60 experience from their own adult children. And if this is your story, you are not alone. You are not weak. You are not imagining it. Before we go further, I want you to know something. What you are feeling is real. The confusion, the guilt, the exhaustion. They're signs that someone you love has been using words as weapons, and you have been absorbing the blows. Let me introduce you to the 10 manipulative things adult children often say to their mothers, especially to women over 60 who tend to blame themselves first and speak up last. 1. You're being too sensitive. Your daughter forgot your birthday. Not mentioned it, not acknowledged it. You felt hurt and said so. Her response, "Mom, you're being too sensitive. Why does everything have to be such a big deal?" What's really happening here, she is telling you that your feelings are wrong, that your hurt doesn't matter, that you should simply accept dismissal and smile about it. This is called invalidation, and it's one of the most effective manipulation tactics because it makes you doubt yourself. You begin to wonder, am I too sensitive? Should I just get over it? The truth, your feelings matter. A forgotten birthday is meaningful. You are not too sensitive for noticing that someone you love forgot an important day. Your daughter knew your birthday. She chose not to acknowledge it. That choice hurt you, and hurt feelings are appropriate responses to being overlooked. 2. You always make everything about yourself. You express concern about your son's health. You noticed he's been drinking more, sleeping poorly. You ask if everything is okay. His response, "There you go again, Mom, always making my problems about yourself. Why do you have to make everything about you?" What's really happening? This is called deflection. By accusing you of making his problems about yourself, he shifts the conversation away from his actual behavior and onto your character. Instead of answering your question or acknowledging your concern, he attacks you. You end up apologizing for caring. The truth, asking someone you love is okay is not self-centered. It is love. A parent's concern for their child's well-being is not narcissism. It's motherhood. Yes, you should respect his autonomy, but expressing care is not the same as making his life about yourself. 3. Mom, you never listen to me. You've called your daughter 3 times this week. Each time, she seems rushed. Finally, she says, "You never really listen to me anyway. You're always waiting for your turn to talk about yourself. Don't bother calling anymore if that's all you're going to do." What's really happening? This is an accusation that comes with no specific examples, no moment when you failed to listen, just a sweeping statement about who you are. This is character assassination disguised as feedback. It sticks with you because it sounds like an observation rather than an attack. The truth, if your daughter had a specific concern about listening, she would say, "Last week, when I told you about my promotion, you interrupted me to talk about your pain in your knee." That's specific and actionable. But "you never listen" is a blanket criticism designed to make you feel perpetually inadequate as a mother. 4. If you really loved me, you would. Your adult son asks you to loan him money. You decline, you have your own retirement to think about. He says, "If you really loved me, you wouldn't say no. A real mother would sacrifice anything for her son." What's really happening?
This is conditional love wrapped in a guilt bomb. He's saying your love is measured by whether you give him what he wants. This is a form of emotional blackmail. It also teaches him that love means erasing your own boundaries. The truth, real love sometimes means saying no. The most loving thing a mother can do is to maintain healthy boundaries. That's not love. That's self-destruction. A son who truly loves his mother will respect her no.
You're just like grandma, comparing you to your imperfect parent. Your daughter brings up your mother, the woman who hurt you, the relationship you've worked on in therapy. You're just like grandma, you know, cold, critical, always judging me. What's really happening? She knows this comparison will land hard. She knows your mother wounded you. By making this comparison, she accesses your deepest insecurities and weaponizes them. This is calculated cruelty dressed up as observation. The truth? You are not your mother. You have spent years becoming different, healing differently, loving differently. One moment of frustration does not erase all the love you've poured out. And even if you did have moments that resembled your mother, that would be something to work on, not a fundamental verdict on who you are. You're too old to understand. You offer advice based on decades of life experience. Your adult child dismisses you. Mom, you're from a different era. You don't understand how things work now. Your advice is outdated and honestly kind of embarrassing. What's really happening? This dismisses your wisdom entirely. Yes, the world has changed. Yes, things are different. But human nature hasn't changed. Love, loyalty, hard work, resilience, these are not outdated. This statement strips you of credibility and authority in the relationship. The truth? You have lived 60+ years. You have navigated relationships, careers, loss, joy, and challenges. That experience has value. Your adult children can appreciate the changed world and respect your wisdom. These aren't mutually exclusive. You don't pretend the internet doesn't exist, and they don't pretend that having walked through life for 60 years means nothing. Don't take it personally. Your son forgot to invite you to a major family gathering. When you found out from someone else, you felt hurt and excluded. When you brought it up, he said, "Mom, don't take it personally. It wasn't about you. You're being so dramatic about this." What's really happening? He is gaslighting you. He is redefining a personal slight as impersonal. But here's the thing, you were personally left out. It was personal. This statement asks you to deny your own experience of reality. The truth? When you are excluded from family events, it is personal. It is supposed to be personal. You are family. Your hurt is a natural response to being left out. Telling you not to take it personally is telling you not to feel what you naturally feel. This is a manipulation tactic, not helpful advice. You're always guilt-tripping me. You haven't heard from your daughter in 3 weeks. Finally, you call and say, "Honey, I miss you. I'd love to hear from you more often." She responds, "See, there you go, guilt-tripping me again. This is why I don't call, because you make me feel bad about it." What's really happening? She has redefined your vulnerability as an attack on her. You expressed a need, wanting more contact. She interpreted it as guilt-tripping and is now reversing the blame onto you. She's also teaching you that expressing needs will be punished with distance and accusations. The truth? Expressing what you need is not guilt-tripping. Guilt-tripping would be, "You never call your poor mother. I'm sitting here alone, dying, and you don't even care." But saying, "I miss you and would love to hear from you more often," is vulnerability. It is honest. It is healthy. A daughter who loves her mother will respond to this with care, not accusations. You're too involved in my life. You notice your son's teenage daughter seems withdrawn and possibly depressed. You ask your son if everything is okay with her. He says, "Stay out of it, Mom. This is my family, not yours. You need to learn to back off. You're too involved." What's really happening? This is boundary setting, and sometimes boundaries are appropriate, but sometimes they're also weaponized to prevent legitimate concern from being expressed. The question is, are you asking to control, or are you asking because you love? There's a difference. The truth, there's a balance. You should respect your adult children's autonomy and their role as parents,
and you can still be concerned about your grandchildren. You don't need permission to love them or to ask gentle questions. The question isn't whether you're involved, it's whether your involvement comes from love or from a need to control. Only you know that answer.
10. You never supported me. Your daughter is struggling with something. Instead of being present, she brings up the past. You never supported me when I needed it most. Why should I listen to you now? You weren't there for me back then. What's really happening? She is bringing old pain into the present moment. Even if there is truth to her past hurt, even if you did fail her at some point, using it as a present weapon prevents reconciliation. It keeps her perpetually hurt and you perpetually guilty. The truth is, if you genuinely failed your daughter, that deserves an honest conversation. But that conversation is different from using old pain to dismiss her mother in the present. As a woman over 60, you've likely made mistakes. You've probably done things you regret, but you've also done 1,000 things right that she's forgotten. And using past failures to avoid present connection doesn't heal anything. It just keeps both of you stuck. Now that we've named the 10 things, let's talk about what happens to you when these words accumulate. You start to walk on eggshells. You monitor every text before sending it. You rehearse conversations in your head, trying to find the right words that won't be twisted, misunderstood, or used against you. You become smaller, quieter. You apologize for things that aren't your fault. You feel confused. One minute your adult child is warm and loving, the next minute they're cold and accusatory. You never know which version of them you're going to get. This inconsistency is exhausting. You spend emotional energy trying to predict their mood, trying to be good enough to earn their kindness. You feel guilty. Even though a part of you recognizes that their accusations aren't fair, another part of you wonders, but what if they're right? What if you are too sensitive? What if you are too involved? What if you did fail them? You replay your parenting, looking for evidence that you were a bad mother. You feel isolated. You can't talk to your friends about this because you're ashamed. Mothers aren't supposed to have adult children who treat them badly. There's an unspoken rule that this is somehow your fault, that you must have done something to deserve this treatment. So you stay quiet. You protect your adult child's image as they damage yours. You feel invisible. Your needs don't matter. Your hurt doesn't matter. Your experience doesn't matter. What matters is managing their emotions, preserving their feelings, and staying in their good graces. Your 60 years of life has been reduced to a supporting role in their story. And here is the most dangerous part. You begin to believe these things about yourself. You tell yourself, I am too sensitive. I am too needy. I am too old. I am too involved. I should have been a better mother. Maybe I deserve this. This is where manipulation becomes truly dangerous, because now your adult child doesn't even need to hurt you. You're doing it to yourself. Now, let's talk about solutions, real ones, not the fantasy where your adult child suddenly becomes kind and reflective, but the reality where you become strong, clear, and at peace. Step 1. Name it without judgment. The first step is to see the pattern without falling into shame spirals. Look at the 10 things we discussed. Which ones does your adult child say to you? Write them down, not to build a case against them, but to clarify your own reality. When you write them down, you take them out of the realm of confusion and put them into the realm of clarity. Suddenly, you're not wondering if you're imagining it. You're not wondering if you're too sensitive. You know what's happening. Example, you might write, my son tells me I'm too involved with his family. He uses this phrase whenever I ask about my grandchildren. He also says I'm too sensitive when I express hurt. When I try to express a need, he accuses me of guilt tripping. Just naming it is powerful. Step 2. Understand your part without taking blame. Here's a hard truth. You have likely enabled this behavior. This isn't your fault, but it is your responsibility now. How did you enable it? Maybe you always apologized first, even when you weren't wrong, made excuses for their behavior to others, didn't set consequences when they hurt you, sacrificed your own needs to keep the peace. Let them rewrite history about your parenting. Accepted that their feelings mattered more than yours. Why did you do this? Because you're a mother. Because you love them. Because you didn't want to rock the boat. Because you were taught that a good mother sacrifices everything. But here's the thing. A good mother also teaches her children how to treat her. If you accept mistreatment, you teach them that mistreatment is acceptable. If you always apologize first, you teach them that they don't have to take responsibility. If you enable their behavior, you're actually harming them because you're preventing them from learning how to have healthy relationships. So the question isn't, how is this my fault? It's, what am I going to do differently now? Step 3. Set clear boundaries and actually enforce them. A boundary is not a punishment. It's a rule for how you'll be treated in a relationship. Here are some examples. Instead of accepting that you're too sensitive, you could say, I'm not going to discuss whether my feelings are valid. My feelings are mine. What I will discuss is how we can resolve this. Instead of defending yourself against, you never supported me, you could say, I'm sorry you felt unsupported during that time. That hurts to hear. However, I'm not going to spend our current conversation relitigating the past. If you want to work through that with a therapist, I support that, but I won't use it as a reason to reject me now. Instead of defending your involvement with grandchildren, you could say, I love my grandchildren. I will always be interested in their lives. I respect your role as their parent, and I will respect any specific boundaries you set. But I'm not going to pretend I don't care about them. Notice something about these responses? They're not angry. They're not punishing. They're just clear. They state your reality without asking for permission or agreement. Step 4. Stop over-explaining. One of the biggest mistakes loving mothers make is over-explaining. You think if you just explain yourself clearly enough, they'll understand. They'll see that you're not trying to be difficult. They'll realize you love them. They already know you love them. Over-explaining just gives them more rope to hang you with. It gives them more material to twist. When you set a boundary, state it once, simply, then stop talking. Bad example. Honey, I can't loan you money because I'm worried about my retirement, and I've been reading articles about how seniors are running out of money, and I had some medical bills last year. Good example. I can't loan you money. I need to protect my retirement. That's it. Don't elaborate, don't defend, don't provide evidence. Just state the truth. Step 5. Accept that they might get angry. When you stop accepting mistreatment, the person delivering it will often escalate. They might say, you're being selfish. They might say, you don't love them. They might withdraw attention and affection. They might tell other family members that you're being unfair. They might punish you with silence. This is hard. It feels like you're losing them. But here's the truth. You're not losing them. You're losing the version of the relationship where you're mistreated. And honestly, that version needed to end. A relationship without respect is not a real relationship.
Step 6. Find your people. You need community. You need people who see you and validate your reality. You need to hear from other women, yes, that's manipulation. Yes, your feelings matter. No, you're not crazy. No, this isn't your fault. Because right now, your adult child has you convinced that the problem is you. You need other people to remind you the problem is the dynamic, and the dynamic is their responsibility to change. Step 7. Let go of the fantasy. One of the hardest things to do is to grieve the relationship you wanted to have. You wanted an adult child who called regularly. You wanted holidays filled with warmth. You wanted to feel valued and appreciated. You wanted them to understand all the sacrifices you made. You wanted reciprocal love. Maybe that will still happen. Maybe when you set boundaries, something shifts and they become more respectful. That's possible. But you also have to prepare yourself for the possibility that it doesn't happen, that they stay defensive, dismissive, and unkind. If that's the case, you have a choice. You can stay in a relationship where you're mistreated, hoping it changes, or you can step back and protect your own peace. What does this look like in practice? Let's return to the examples from earlier and see what happens when you respond differently. The forgotten birthday? Instead of feeling hurt and confused, you now say, "I noticed my birthday wasn't mentioned this year. That hurt. I hope we can find a way to stay connected that works for both of us." If she says you're too sensitive, you don't defend yourself. You simply say, "That's how you feel, and that's okay, but I'm going to take care of myself," and move on. The concerned question about his health? Instead of apologizing for asking, you now say, "I noticed some changes and I care about you. If you don't want to talk about it, I respect that, but I want you to know I'm here if you need me." You know what's interesting? You spent decades raising your adult children. You shaped them. You influenced them. You gave them everything you could give. Now it's time to shape something else, your own legacy. Your legacy is not determined by whether your adult children call you or appreciate you. Your legacy is determined by how you lived, how you treated others, what you valued, and what you stood for. Right now, if you're accepting mistreatment to keep your adult children in your life, your legacy is this: love yourself less than you love others, accept pain to avoid conflict, let people hurt you and pretend it's normal. Is that the legacy you want to leave? Or do you want your legacy to be this: I am worthy of respect. I have boundaries. I love fiercely, but not at the expense of my own well-being. I taught my children and grandchildren that self-respect matters. One of the most powerful things you can do for your adult children, especially your adult daughters, is to show them what a woman who respects herself looks like, a woman who doesn't shrink, a woman who doesn't accept mistreatment, a woman who loves and also protects her own heart.
I want to give you something concrete to do this week. Choose one boundary. Just one. Pick one of the manipulative statements you identified in step 1 and choose how you'll respond differently next time. Write it down. Literally, write down your new response. Practice saying it out loud. Let it feel weird. Let it feel uncomfortable. That's normal. Then, when the situation arises, use it. You might stumble, you might fall back into old patterns. That's okay. This is a practice, not perfection. But this one boundary will teach you something important. You can do this. And once you prove that to yourself with one boundary, you'll be ready for the next one. As I close this, I want to say something directly to you. Your years are valuable. Your time is precious. You have earned the right to spend it with people who appreciate it. Your adult children do not get to steal your peace. And you, my dear, deserve peace. Now, are you experiencing similar issues with your adult children? Share your thoughts and experiences with us in the comments. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like it and subscribe to the channel. Stay healthy and peaceful. See you in the next video.